I live in a city which is infamous for traffic jams.
Can you guess which city is this?
Is it Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, or Hyderabad? I live in Delhi NCR. But honestly, every Indian city is suffering with terrible traffic problems. And despite the worsening road congestions, India's passenger vehicle market is growing consistently, which indicates that the appeal of private vehicles remains strong. But more car users would mean more. So what are our plans to deal with this urban transport crisis?
आज पूरे देश में एक साथ 50 से ज्यादा शहरों में मेट्रो की दिशा में आगे बढ़ने का प्रयास।
In a massive metro push over the last decade, India expanded its metro train network from a mere 5 cities in 2014 to nearly 20 cities in 2024. About 24 more cities are in the process of installing metro tracks. This list includes several tier 2 cities as well. But are metros actually fulfilling the transportation needs of these cities? A study shows that 7 out of 13 metro systems are struggling to touch even 10% of their estimated ridership. That's appalling for projects that cost thousands of crores. Of course, metros are great. They are comfortable, clean, non-polluting, and a symbol of development and modernity. And given the ever-growing traffic congestion in cities, they are an efficient alternative to a car. But these poor ridership figures raise important questions about the utility of the costly investments on metro trains in Indian cities. So what's stopping urban Indians from using the metro trains? And what does it say about the broader public transport problem of our cities? Hi, that's me, the narrator, reporter, and producer of this video. My daily routine resembles that of millions of working urban Indians. That's why I am an almost perfect sample for this explanation.
Oh, I just realized my life is so regular and boring. Well, that's a story for another time.
So my home is about 7 kilometers from my office. If I commute via metro, then first I'll have to catch an e-rickshaw that will take me to the metro station, from where I'll board the metro, cross 3 stations, and then get on a sharing e-rickshaw that will drop me at the nearest junction to my office, which is another 200 meters of walk.
This whole journey will cost me some 40 rupees and quite a lot of energy.
So instead of doing this cumbersome commute, I simply book a bike. Sasta, tikau, door-to-door solution. But it's not as smooth as I made it appear, because I inevitably end up getting stuck in traffic with countless others like me who have ditched the metro.
Traffic jams have become such an inseparable part of our daily work commute that it seems odd on the day I don't encounter a traffic jam, however rare that may be.
That's because Indian cities have high congestion levels and their average travel time is among the worst in the world. The 7-kilometer one-way journey, which in an ideal city traffic should not take more than 10-15 minutes, ends up consuming 20 to 30 minutes of my time. That is exactly double. And if I count the return commute, then I'm spending 1 hour on commute every day. Why do our daily commutes have to be so inefficient? An average urban Indian spends almost 2 hours of their day commuting to and from work every day in 2023. Bangalore alone loses about 20,000 crore rupees every year due to traffic congestion. Add to it the vehicular pollution that is poisoning the air in our cities.
But metros are supposed to solve these problems, right? Then why aren't Indian cities benefiting from metro trains?
Metros have a very specific role to play.
That's Shreya Gaddepalli, a seasoned urban mobility expert who has worked on the transport planning of several Indian cities.
Now, where do metros work? Metros work very well when there are extremely high demand corridors, like where the 20 to 30,000 people are traveling in a single direction in the morning peak or the evening peak. And the second key factor is that the trip distances are long. So when you have long distances over 15 kilometers, metros work brilliantly because there is a substantial amount of walking or accessing a metro that is required. And to offset that, unless the overall trip length is very high, like 15 kilometers or more, metro doesn't actually turn out to be the fastest mode from door to door. And now let's look at where it fails. It essentially fails where trip distances are small, which is much of India. The trips often, except for Mumbai, which is a linear city where there's a lot of demand in singular direction, and that's why the Mumbai local is so famously overpacked. But most other cities in India typically tend to be radial in nature, which means that they're expanding. And the trips are distributed, which means people are typically trying to find their vocation wherever they need to go closer to their house. And that's why many of the trips are short. Now, in this context, metro doesn't work. And especially in some of the mid and smaller sized cities, the overall trip lengths are very, very short, right? People are not traveling too long.
Like me, the majority of work commutes in Indian cities are less than 10 kilometers. That's why metro accounts for such a low share in total trips in Indian cities. If people aren't traveling that long, why would they take the hassle of using a metro, especially when they have the comfort of their own vehicle right outside their door? In a typical urban traffic congestion today, you will notice that most of the cars carry only 1 or 2 passengers, which means that even though the roads are fully packed, the actual number of people who are traveling is small. But if we flash back to just 2 or 3 decades in the past, Indian cities didn't face this traffic problem.
80s, probably we had a very good public transport system.
Shivanand Swamy was involved in the planning of India's first BRTS in Ahmedabad and has advised several governments on public transport initiatives.
Like best in Mumbai, Pallavans in Chennai. BMTC was till recently they were doing very well. Bangalore. Ahmedabad had AMTS.
Many Indian cities which presently today do not have public transport used to have good public transport.
But subsequently, when the Maruti came in, all the cars came in, the public transport, the role has diminished significantly.
The emerging Indian economy grew an aspirational class who started fulfilling their desires of owning a vehicle. But what got left behind somewhere in this growth story is the public transport of our cities. What we are witnessing in our cities now is the result of widespread motorization and a lack of public transport options. Introducing metro in this situation is somewhat like this.
So the whole idea that we'll introduce a quality public transport and take people from private modes of transport to public transport is not happening.
Geetam Tiwari is chair professor at IIT Delhi's Transportation Research and Injury Prevention Center.
Only depending on metro will not solve our problem. Because in Bangalore, after introducing metro, the buses were not increased. Now the bus ridership has gone down. Metro ridership never increased. And what has happened then? Many more two-wheelers on the road. More people are traveling by two-wheeler. Two-wheeler ownership in India is very high. Almost 60% of the households in urban areas own two-wheeler. Two-wheeler is very reliable because it is at your doorstep. It doesn't really get stuck in congestion. You can always weave through the traffic. And if you want to wean away people from two-wheelers to public transport, it has to meet the reliability, comfort, convenience, and economy of a two-wheeler.
Therefore, you need very large, elaborate public transport system. There are big cities where there are corridors which may or may not be attracting so many people today of that number. But there are going to be heavy movement at some point in time, maybe next 5 years, 10 years. You do need a very high capacity setup.
Now, instead of developing a comprehensive public transport network, Indian cities directly took the metro plunge.
Now, we have cities in India which have built a metro, but the bus service is more or less non-existent. Clearly, the numbers speak for themselves. Like take Chennai for example. Chennai's population in the last 2 decades has been growing decadally around 30-35%. The buses in the city have been stagnant. Take Delhi for that matter. The number of buses on Delhi's roads today are actually less than what it used to be in the year 2000. While the city has become such a big mega city, the number of buses has not increased. So effectively, we are at 1/4 the per capita availability of public transport services. And now we have many 2 million sized cities which are also now thinking of building a metro or actually built a metro. In these cities, let's look at the stats. A kilometer of metro would cost over 500 crore rupees. Sometimes even more, especially if you're trying to build underground, it'll be even more expensive. This 1 kilometer, if you look at Indian stats, in a best case scenario like Delhi or Mumbai, it would serve somewhere between 10 to 20,000 passengers in a day per kilometer. So essentially, if you build 10 kilometers, it will serve somewhere between 1 lakh to 2 lakh people. The same 500 crores are sufficient to operate 500 top quality metro-like buses that can meet the need, which will reach like a large part of the city. And these buses can serve between 4 to 5 lakh people. So essentially, in place of building 4 kilometers of metro, you can serve the entire population of the city with high quality bus services.
So imagine if I had a reliable first mile and last mile connectivity, that is a direct, frequent, economical and a safe bus service near my house to my office, I wouldn't have opted for a ride-hailing bike or a cab. And when this is applied on a macro level, other commuters would also have preferred such reliable public transport instead of their private vehicles. And our roads would not have reached this state.
I think the most recent announcement by the central government of buses is welcome. But the numbers are very small compared to the need. The need of India today is more than 2 lakh city buses. We only have about 30,000 city buses in the country that are operating. Beijing, capital of China, one city, has nearly 30,000 buses. I think that's what we need to look at. A few corridors in some of the largest cities, metros make complete sense. And I think we should completely focus on that. But smaller demand corridors in large cities and most of the smaller cities, metro doesn't make any sense. That's where we need better bus services. And unless we have public transport which reaches everybody, people are not going to use public transport.
They have high quality, very high cost, state-of-the-art technology is there, but they are not integrated, and therefore when you build a 60 kilometer long metro rail, essentially it covers 60 square kilometers. A city may be 500, 600, 800, 1000 square kilometers.
That makes metro out of reach for many. Another aspect that excludes a lot of riders is its affordability.
If for one person to travel by metro, it requires that the family income has to be at least 36,000 for the household per month. And this kind of income very few households have in our cities. And for buses, it is almost 1/3 of this.
And those people who do not have the means, what are they doing? It's not as if there isn't public transport. That public transport in Indian cities is called shared auto. Whether it's a Bhopal or a Jaipur or a Lucknow or a Ranchi, all these cities depend on shared auto rickshaws and electric rickshaws as public transport. Because the government has failed to provide high quality public transport, or for that matter, any public transport. And the only means that are left to the poor is to use these informal transport services. And those who have the means then end up buying a private motor vehicle, a personal motor vehicle.
So that is why most, these lower middle income and middle income people, they can afford a bus and a two-wheeler. They cannot afford a metro and car. And rich people who can afford a car, they can also afford a metro, but not all of them are doing long trips. So metro is not really pulling away too many people from car also.
Now it will be unrealistic to believe that all the private vehicle users will shift to public transport. Because a city is made up of people from all sorts of economic backgrounds. So it's essential that the transportation system serves everyone. But then why do our urban transport policies favor cars over public transport?
Basically, all the transportation and traffic engineers, engineers are system builders, very high quality system. And therefore, the entire training and engineering design is on moving as many PCUs, that means as many vehicles as possible in a quickest manner. But that is not transport planning. Transport planning is how do you minimize overall mobility of vehicles and how do you maximize mobility of the people.
Even though in reality, public transport users are larger in number, development is seen as being equated to car.
Because the people who move around in the car are the decision makers in many ways. And people who do not use cars, their voices are never heard.
Transport policy favoring cars has serious downsides beyond traffic jams, especially when it comes to environment and our health. Vehicular pollution is a major culprit behind the hazardous air quality in many Indian cities. And what's also growing year by year along with the vehicles are the deaths in road accidents. The usual solution to tackle the traffic problem has either been to build more lanes, more flyovers, or more parking spaces. But that only adds up to the promotion of private vehicles and makes their usage more convenient.
You see that as a solution? No. Private vehicles in our cities can never be a solution. We only have less than a meter per person road space. And therefore, we will reach a time when we will not have anything but to depend on public transport. But when you reach there, at that point in time, solutions are going to be much costlier. By then, we would have built many more flyovers, we would have been demolishing them, and it's not going to be easy doing all of that.
Urban transport planning is a step-by-step process, and each city starts from a different point of infrastructure, size, population, etc. This video aims to start a conversation on an issue that affects our daily lives. Tell us your thoughts in the comment section, and if you think we should do more insightful reports like this, then support us by getting our membership. These projects cost us a lot of time and resources. Your support will help us continue doing such work.